Hey, it's Dr. Amanda with Straightsmile Solutions, straightsmilesolutions.com. Let's talk a little bit more about baby bottles, tongue ties, and picking the right baby bottle for a baby that may or may not be tongue tied. And we're going to go into that a little bit more. Now, I'm not a tongue tie or tongue release expert in kids. I'm somewhat of an expert, I'd say, in older kids and adults just because I've been through the process and I'm an orthodontist and I've had a lot of myo training. But babies are completely different. But just an aside, you may have heard this in some of my other videos. Hypothetically, this is just a hypothesis, but I do believe that my oldest kid, my son, was tongue tied. We could not get him to stay on to latch. It wasn't a milk supply issue. There was plenty of that. Like I could pump it like crazy. Um, Entire freezers full. It was he couldn't just screamed and screamed and screamed, and he was losing massive amounts of weight to the point where the doctors finally intervened. They sent me to lactation consultants. No one could figure it out, and the solution was to try different types of bottles until he found one that he liked. And once he found one he liked, there was only one brand he would do, and it was made in Taiwan. And we had a friend that gave it to us as a baby shower gift, and then we actually sent her to go buy more on her trip. That's basically our story. So anyways, but yeah, I mean, here's some of the things that I've learned about tongue tie in babies. I've learned so much. First of all, there's anterior and posterior tongue ties in babies. The anterior ones are very obvious, like people can see it with their eyes, like the pediatrician, but there's posteriors which can't necessarily be seen. So a posterior tongue tie is located further back or hidden, so it's not visible, but it does restrict the elevation of the mid tongue, which affects their ability to latch. So I'm guessing that's might have been what it was. Now that I think about it, and they talk about this test that Zoggy does with for his tongue ties, and I might get into that in another video a little bit more. But they talk about that people with posterior tongue tie are still able to reach their tongue to the roof of their mouth, but they can't hold it there because they're having to essentially use accessory muscles. So he uses something called the floor of the mouth hold, which is basically, this is not an infant thing, but when you can press your tongue to the roof of your mouth and do the on the spot. If you don't know how to do this, you should definitely go to YouTube, put in floor of mouth hold maneuver Zoggy, Zahgi. He's an ENT in California, affiliated with Stanford, and he shows you how when you do that, you can press down on the floor of the mouth while you lift your tongue, and you'll see a visible dimple or cupping of the tongue. That is a sign of a secondary tongue tie. So once you can identify the secondary tongue tie, which is almost impossible to identify in babies, they were saying, or the posterior tongue tie, that just if you're having trouble with latching, that might be what it is. But that release is, I think, a little bit more difficult in babies. So anyways, that is my experience to share with you guys. But don't give up, and remember that tongue ties in infants have different symptoms in kids. So things that you should know about, how it affects older kids. And also in babies, you're going to have difficulty with them latching. You might have plenty of milk supply, but they're not going to be latching. They're not going to be staying on. They're going to be losing weight. They're going to be screaming, fussy, crying, things like that. So, but in the older kids, it's important to know because if you miss that posterior or even anterior tongue tie, but especially the posterior one, you're still going to have potentially some speech issues. The kids might have texture issues when they eat. They're going to be very picky about certain types of textures because maybe they're not able to manipulate that food in their mouth. They may gag and choke more commonly than other kids do on certain foods, which was totally my son. I know he's going to kill me if he hears this, but he used to gag and choke on like normal foods that, it was Cheerios even until 12 months, 13 months, 14 months, 15 months. And it was all the time. Everywhere we went, we fed him. We never knew when he was going to vomit, and it was a choking vomit. I know that sounds awful, you guys. Sorry to me to share that. But another thing is, like, a lot of times these kids can't lick ice cream cones. That's something that I remember not being able to use my tongue to eat things. So as well as, like, if you have food on your lips, you can't lick your lips to get it off. Or you can't stick your tongue past your lower teeth when you stretch your tongue out. So, and then these kids will often have more restless sleep, more wake ups, have more difficulty sleeping, and more sleep disordered breathing signs. So, all right, thanks so much.